G'day everyone. When Swatch and Omega did their collaboration last year and launched the Moonswatch, I was pretty keen to get my hands on one. Trouble is, so was every man and their dog. That meant stock sold out quick, which then led to two other conundrums. One was that buyers were willing to sell them back at insane prices, and their specs on paper were less than appealing for the price, even at retail levels. So I abandoned all hope of ever getting one, but imagine my surprise when this little glimmering beauty from Pagani Design leapt up at me during an AliExpress sale. Not precisely a Moonswatch, but so close. And that was all the push I needed to buy it, get it on wrist, get a move on, and start the review on this chronograph. So here's a specs list with all the details, including physical dimensions, weight, water resistance, crystal, movement, and price. Now when you look at those specs and the price you're paying, you already know this is a bargain. But when you look at the other features it packs and the overall feel and build quality, you really begin to appreciate that this watch may look toy-like, but it packs serious hardware. The big one for me is the bezel. The red is vibrant and the white text makes it easy to read. But best of all, it's sapphire. Not aluminium, not ceramic, sapphire. So it looks great and it's very durable. Matching the bezel material is a slightly raised sapphire crystal protecting the dial, so scratches won't be a problem here. Underneath this crystal is a silver dial, and running around the outer edge you've got a black minute track with the gap in between each minute marker punctuated by two smaller markers, which are used to accurately gauge the reading on the chronograph seconds hand. At each 5-minute interval you've got a longer loomed rectangular marker, and the 12 o'clock marker has a standard meat and potatoes design for orientation. A thin black circle runs around the minute markers, which helps to offer a clear separation between the markers and the inner workings. Moving in, and at the 12 o'clock position, you've got the Pagani Design logo in black, with Pagani Design written underneath in block letters and a similar yet smaller chronograph text in red, smaller font. The logo and font size and design are well proportioned, sensible, and don't distract from the rest of the dial. The same can also be said for the Japan movement text at the bottom of the dial. Going further down, you have the chronograph subdials with a 60-minute timer on the left-hand side and the 24-hour indicator on the right. The red hands on both these subdials have a touch of loom and a thick triangular base, making them appear like little rocket ships, which the inner kid in me loves. At the 6 o'clock position is the seconds indicator with a more subdued black hand. It goes against the spacey theme of this watch, but I feel it was a smart choice for the sake of legibility, and a third mini rocket might be too intense on the dial. Equally subtle are the pencil hour and minute hands. They're loom filled with a black outline on their edges, which help with legibility against the silver dial backdrop. But adding more red to this piece is the chronograph seconds hand with a small loomed arrow tip. These hands are a little on the thin side, but their length is appropriate and they're still easy enough to read at a glance. Moving out more, the polished stainless steel case is a bit hefty, but it looks nice and feels like it could also take punishment if necessity arose. The chronograph pushes function the way you'd expect, with the top button starting the chronograph seconds hand and pausing and resuming it when pushed again and again, and the bottom pusher is used for resetting the hand and 60-minute subdial. They're responsive and engage well with the right amount of force, so I'm happy with that. The slightly recessed crown is signed and is easy enough to screw and unscrew thanks to some decent nailing around it. And the screw down feature of the crown helps to give it 100 meters of water resistance, which is more than necessary for a fun chronograph, but still something I really appreciate having. The moderate case dimensions and lug width mean that it'll fit most wrists comfortably, and you won't have much difficulty finding aftermarket straps. It does wear a little on the high side thanks to that thickness, but unless you're wearing long sleeve shirts, you'll barely notice it as it sits well on the wrist. And as if the low price and mad specs weren't enough, the watch also comes with some extra goodies, including a wiping cloth, spring bar tool for changing bracelets and straps, and a NATO strap. And best of all, the sign buckle NATO strap feels like a quality item with appropriate thickness and feels comfortable on the wrist. But as much as I love that NATO, the colour choice and pattern for this particular watch is questionable, as it really doesn't suit the theme at all. If they offered a similar style in red or white, or red and white, I think they'd have a winner. The stock photos of the watch give the dial a very white appearance, but in the flesh it has a more silvery tone. For me it's not a big deal, but those that are expecting a bright white dial should be aware of this. The absence of a date complication might split opinions as well. For some it helps with the symmetry of the dial, but I feel they could have pulled it off without much hassle. And I also have mixed feelings about the case back. I think for this particular watch model it gives it an even more fun and quirky character, and plays well into the theme of this watch, but it might come across as too ridiculous and childish for some, and given the laser etching of design isn't that deep, it will show signs of wear and scratching over time. And this is where I descend into the negatives, starting with the bracelet. It's not the worst bracelet I've worn, but overall I didn't feel comfortable wearing it. It feels cheap, has a lot of rattle, and links have a slightly sharp edge to them, which you thankfully won't feel unless you deliberately rub them. And I know people's experiences may differ, but for a new watch it's kind of disheartening to find grime on the curved end links and in between the lugs when removing the bracelet. It does make me wonder where this watch has been before I got it. But on the plus side, the clasp is milled and it has 3 micro adjustments. Not great, but it's something at least. And while I'll give Pagani points for adding lume on the subdials and chronograph seconds hands, it's really weak. It starts off nicely, but after 5 minutes, the dial and subdial hands lose their shine and the main hands aren't too far off either. So don't expect to be able to read the time at 3 AM when you're grabbing it off your bedside table. So would I recommend buying this watch? Well, if, like me, you were keen on the Moonswatch, or if you have a thing for the colour red, then yes. The price is very reasonable, and it's a very fun watch to wear with amazing specs to boot. The only thing I would recommend would be to buy an additional red or white strap for it for colour coordination, as the bracelet's a bit rubbish and the supplied NATO, while nice, clashes too much with the dial. If you already own one of these watches, or another Moonswatch equivalent, I'd like to hear thoughts about them, but that's it for now, and thanks for watching, eh?